Alrighty, we are rolling.
Okay.
Good to go.
So now I have to behave.
No, you have to behave. You're on camera. I mean, I guess you don't.
Make it more interesting for
Yeah.
the viewers. Well, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. My name's Dan Peterson. I am the retired Director of Public Works for Yuba County, and I now help out doing grant applications for the county. And the grant applications I normally work on are complete streets / safe routes to school projects that provide sidewalks and bicycle lanes for kids to get to school. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is the Olivehurst Elementary and Yuba Gardens Intermediate Safe Routes to School project that we are requesting funding to build. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the area, what we're talking about is two different streets. We're talking about McGowan Parkway from the intersection of Powerline Road over to the railroad tracks just west of Olivehurst Elementary. And we're talking about Fleming Road from McGowan up to 14th Street. Both of these streets provide access for students and their families to get to these schools. McGowan does have some sidewalks and bike lanes, but the sidewalks are not all there. There's gaps in the sidewalk system, and some of the sidewalks that exist do not meet ADA standards. They're damaged, they're buckled, they're not wide enough, the cross slopes aren't right. So we're assuming that we're going to have to replace most of the existing sidewalks when we do the project. Fleming Way, on the other hand, has virtually nothing. It's a 2-lane road with almost no shoulders and a roadside ditch on either side. So when it rains, the ditches fill full of water. Kids are forced to walk down the middle of the roadway with the cars in the rain because there's no sidewalk or any place else safe to walk. That is the heart and soul of a Safe Routes to School project, is providing a safe place where the pedestrians and bicyclists do not have to share a traveled lane with motorized vehicles, especially in inclement weather. So that's what this project is all about. Now, the project development process, I'm going to go back a couple of steps here. Before we do anything else, of course, we have to plan the project. We have to determine what the project scope is, the limits of the project, and then what we're hoping to accomplish with the project. So we've got a good idea what we want to do with this project. In other words, putting in curb gutters, sidewalks, storm drain, Class 2 bicycle lanes, both on McGowan and on Fleming Way, and where there are existing sidewalks or bike lanes, making sure they meet standards, restriping them, remarking them, and if necessary, tearing them out and replacing them completely so they meet current standards. Now, once we go through this scoping phase, then we actually have to do the design. And when you go through the design, that may take 1 year to 2 years, depending upon the size of the project. Once it's designed, then you go to construction. All of this is predicated upon when do we get funding. Funding is always the driving force behind when we get to build a project. A lot of folks think that their tax money goes towards these projects and that the county gets a pot of money every year to go build projects. That's not true. We get a small portion of your tax money, your property taxes, and the road taxes, especially the gas tax, that we then get to use to maintain the existing roads. Those funds are insufficient for us to even maintain the existing roads. There's no way on earth that we can go out and build new roads, widen roads, put in curb gutters, sidewalk, bike lanes, and storm drains with those monies. That just doesn't work. So the only other two ways that you can fund a new infrastructure project is developer fees or grant funding. Developer fees are great if you live in Plumas Lake and you have developers building new subdivisions because they pay to put in the new roads, the new storm drains, the new bike paths. Olivehurst, Linda, they're for the most part built out. We're not getting development fees up here. So the only way that we can fund projects like what we're proposing here are through grants. And that's what we're here today to do, is check off that box that says we've reached out to the public agrees, this is a project the public wants, and we're incorporating the elements that the public desires into our project, and this project is worthy of state or federal funds. So that's why we're here today. Trust me, if it was up to Yuba County, we have a long laundry list of priority projects that we would love to build. The actual sequence in which they get built depends upon when we're successful getting grant funding. The county's philosophy has been to go after every pot of money we can and get the grant funding at every opportunity, because we do not know how long this money is going to last. I see the economy could very easily take a downturn. We could go into a recession, and if that happens, my grant funds may not be available for the next 3 years. So we are aggressively going after the grant funding to get these types of projects built. And this is a true priority project. So moving forward, where are we with this project? Well, we've gone through the scoping. We have a good idea what we want to do. And as we've already discussed, we've already established the project limits. McGowan Parkway between Power Line and the railroad tracks, Fleming Way between McGowan and 14th Street. So we've established that, and we know we're going to put in sidewalks, and we know we're either going to put in new Class 2 bike lanes, or we're going to update and standardize the existing bike lanes on McGowan. All right, so that's where the project's at today. The schedule, this grant application is actually due in 4 days. So I don't have much time to finish up this application. This one is probably going to be right at 100 pages long, and it takes a couple of weeks to prepare. So there's a lot invested just to go after grant funding. But once again, the county is committed to pursuing these opportunities because this is a priority for the county to get built. So going back to schedule, the grant application is due on Monday, the 17th of June. We probably will not hear whether or not we're successful in our application until September. And the earliest we would actually get a contract with the state to be funded would be January of 2025. At that point, we would go into the formal design process, which means design would be finishing up sometime in 26, and we would go to construction either in the summer of 26 or in the spring of 27. These projects take typically 3 or 4 years to go all the way through the design process and actually get them built. So that's something to always remember. A lot of folks don't understand that it really does take that long to go through the funding process, go through the design process, get all the necessary permits, and then actually go to construction. And the flavor of the money, whether it's state funds or federal funds, will have a huge impact both on the cost of the project and on the schedule of the project, because if we have federal funds and we have to meet the National Environmental Protection Act, NEPA requirements, you can add a year to the schedule. So the type of money we receive from the grant funding also plays an important part in all of this. Project alternatives. Well, we always have opportunities to look at different types of what they call countermeasures. And I'm going to, once again, go back a step and go into more detail than anybody is really interested in, unless you're an engineer and you're a nerd like I am. So when you go through and analyze a project like this, the first thing you do is you get public input. And I think everybody in Olivehurst will agree that sidewalks and bike lanes on McGowan leading to Olivehurst Elementary and on Fleming Way leading up to Yuba Gardens Intermediate is a priority for us. Okay, that's just easy. So the next thing I do is I look at the collision history. How many injury accidents have there been on this stretch of McGowan and on that stretch of Fleming? In the past 10 years, there have been 35 injury accidents on that section of McGowan and Fleming. Out of those 35, 11 of them have involved either pedestrians or bicyclists. That's a big percentage. I mean, that's really big. Almost 1 out of 3 accidents is involving a pedestrian or a bicyclist. What is that telling us? That it's not really safe to be a pedestrian or a bicyclist on McGowan or on Fleming. So now you have to look at what type of accidents you had. Was it a broadside? Was it a rear end? Was somebody out of their lane and did a head-on? Did they make an illegal turn? Did they run a stop sign or a traffic light? And then once you identify
what the cause of those accidents was and what type of accident it was, what countermeasure can I now put into this project that will either reduce the number of or eliminate that type of accident? So, restriping, putting in a pedestrian median, putting in a crosswalk, putting in your rectangular rapid flashing beacons near the schools. All of those are considered countermeasures, each one of which is assigned a reduction factor by the U.S. Department of Transportation. So it's actually possible for an engineer to go through and calculate what your savings are going to be in terms of severe injury accidents, visible injury accidents, or complaint of pain accidents, each of which has a different dollar value assigned to it. And you can come up with a benefit in terms of dollars for building a project. Then you compare that to the cost of the project, you come up with what they call a benefit cost ratio. And a lot of grant programs will score your grant depending upon what that benefit cost ratio turns out to be. In this case, with the large number of pedestrian bicyclist accidents we've had, and with the number of countermeasures that we are proposing, our benefit cost ratio is going to be very good. But the question is, are there any other countermeasures out there that we can incorporate within our existing right-of-way that isn't going to blow the budget, blow the schedule, or require some form of environmental permitting and that will completely bust the schedule? So those are the things that we look at for project alternatives. There really aren't a whole lot of things that we're going to do. We're not going to start putting in roundabouts at the intersections. The biggest thing is just because of budget. The second thing is because of schedule. There's no way I could get a roundabout designed and built as part of this in a 3-year project. The other thing is right-of-way. A roundabout, I can guarantee we'd have to be out there buying right-of-way. Very possibly we'd have to be tearing out a house or two. And that is one thing that the county is committed not to do with these projects, is we're not going to start taking people's homes and destroying them in order to make room for a complete streets project. Unless it's a willing seller who says, hey, I think this is a viable project. I'm coming to you, the county, and saying, here, I offer my home for this. Otherwise, it's just a non-starter for us. We are looking at doing conflict painting or striping, where you approach an intersection and cars may be trying to turn either right or left across a bicycle lane. That's one of the biggest areas for bicycle involved accidents, is for a driver turning right, completely forgetting that that's a bike lane right next to them and there might be a bicyclist over there. So those are, that's one that we're definitely going to be putting in here. Plus the rectangular rapid flashing beacons, plus restriping, plus making sure that our bike lanes are a minimum 5 feet wide, plus making sure that our sidewalks are a minimum 5 feet wide, plus making sure we have the advanced warning signs and everything else that we can possibly do. All right, so those are the types of alternatives that we look at. So that is probably way more than anybody wanted to know about how we select projects, how we fund projects, how we design projects, and what the project development process actually involves. So at this point, do you have any questions?
I'm okay, not at this time.
Not at this time. Well, let's see. Yeah, on this project,
Actually,
go ahead.
dude, in terms of like the accidents, is that only regarding like Fleming, or is that also counting, say, the coming from the on-ramp of the highway?
Nope. And there's a couple of things. That's a really good question for a couple of points. Number one, those collisions only involve McGowan from power line to the railroad tracks, and on Fleming from McGowan to 14. That's it. If it occurs at an intersection, I still get to count it. But if it's more than, say, 10 feet off that intersection, I don't get to count it. Now, State Route 70 is right over here off the power line. One of the reasons why the project is starting at power line is because I do not want to get into Caltrans right-of-way. As soon as I get into Caltrans right-of-way, Caltrans now has oversight over the project. And their environmental gets involved, their right-of-way gets involved, and it becomes a whole different type of project. And you can add at least a year to the schedule. And I'm not saying that Caltrans is bad, But they have their own standards they have to meet. I'm former Caltrans, so I understand what constraints they're under, what requirements they have to meet. And so when we design a project, normally we try to stay outside of Caltrans right away, just so we don't drag them into it. They've got enough work of their own. Same thing with the railroad track. The one entity around here that has more power than Caltrans is the Union Pacific Railroad. Only the federal government can control the railroad. So we stay out of the railroad right away. We'll go right up to it. If we're actually going to improve a railroad crossing, then we have to enter into a formal coordination and a cooperative agreement with the railroad, and you're talking a few years to get a relatively simple crossing designed and constructed.
Okay.
Wow.
But that's a really good question. Now, the nice thing is, we've already done McGowan from State Route 70 over to State Route 65. So we're actually filling in, a gap, or leveraging that prior project. The other thing is, for those of you that have paid attention to what the crazy engineers are doing at Yuba County, is that in 2022, I first proposed a big Safe Routes to School project for Olivehurst, and it included, I believe, 7 or 8 different roads, and it was a $28 million project. We missed getting it funded by 1 point. These are competitive grants. They score you on a basis of 0 to 100, and we missed by 1 point. Really bugged me. And I still think we got the one for West Linda in 2022, same grant cycle. I really think if we hadn't got the one for West Linda, they would have given us Olivehurst. But they weren't going to give us 2, $28 million projects at once.
Yeah.
So, okay, I missed that one, I'm going to try again. So in 2023, I went after a local transportation climate adaptation program grant for the community of Olivehurst. And this time I made it even bigger. So this was a $45 million project, involved 13 different roads, and we got that one. So that's exciting. That project is just going into design right now. That's going to be an easy 2-year design project, maybe a little bit longer, and then at least 2 years to construct. So that's a big project. That's the biggest project, with the exception of possibly an interchange, that Yuba County's ever attempted. It's huge. This project ties exactly into that bigger project. Because the bigger project, I'm going to move over here now, make you move the camera. So you got Olivehurst, you've got Western, you've got McGowan, you got State Route 70 and State Route 65. So that road's already done. Olivehurst Avenue is already done. A portion of 11th is done, and I think it's this side. All of 7th has been done. This big project under the LTCAP, the Local Transportation Climate Adaptation Program, I think it's 4th, 5th, 6th, and I think 6th might go all the way over to Olivehurst. 7th is already built. 8th, 9th was already built. And I can't remember, I think 10th goes to there, and then 11th, portion 11th is already built. So now we're coming through and we're going to do this portion of Olivehurst, or excuse me, McGowan, and then this portion of Fleming. So you can see we're taking this southern chunk and filling in a big gap, which is what the state and the federal government want to see, is that we're eliminating big gaps in the active transportation system. The ultimate goal is I should be able to walk or ride a bike from any point in Olivehurst to any other point in Olivehurst without getting squashed like a bug. So once these are all built, this section's taken care of, but poor McGowan down here in Fleming is still without any facilities. So this project really ties nicely into that bigger $45 million project. And then I've got a whole another project to continue filling in streets later. But right now, looking at the big gaps for people trying to get to Olivehurst Elementary and to Yuba Gardens Intermediate, we felt this was the highest priority project right now in Olivehurst. Any other questions? You guys are doing really well so far.
No questions.
All right, yeah, and we've been, oh, I completely forgot another exciting part of this.
Oh,
I'm an engineer. I get excited about dirt, concrete, asphalt, road base. But there is a whole separate component to these projects called a non-infrastructure component, which means that people actually come out to the schools and they talk to the kids about biking safety, about pedestrian safety, about using crosswalks, about how to properly ride, what the bicycling laws actually are. They do bicycle helmets giveaway. They have educational handouts and discussions for parents. Talk about the safe way to drop off your kids and to pick up your kids after school, and what to watch out for in terms of other people's children running around that actually walk or bike to school if you're going to pick up your kid in a car. They have walk to school days, and then they'll actually have adult volunteers that will walk around the neighborhoods and walk the kids from home all the way to the school, teach them how to obey the traffic laws, teach them to to wait for stoplights, teach them to use the crosswalks and not to jaywalk. So this project also includes a very robust, I think it's a 3-year non-infrastructure program that will be both for Olivehurst Elementary and for Yuba Gardens Intermediate. So that is another exciting component to this project that goes above and beyond just what the engineers love to do, which is build things. All right, well, for those of you that are watching this on your computer or on YouTube or however you watch it, if you have questions, this project is not designed. So please contact us at Yuba County Public Works. Send us any questions, send us any suggestions. If you have videos of things that go on that we should be aware of, send them to us. We have another Safe Routes to School project that we're proposing over in Linda, on Linda Avenue and on Dunning Avenue. And we had a resident show up with a video of people that were actually going into the wrong lane and driving up against traffic and through school-age children walking to school because they were impatient waiting in line for people turning left into the school to drop off their kids. Wow. Those are things we need to be aware of. I do not get out to all the different schools when kids are dropped off or picked up. So I don't get to see all of this. Probably should, but I don't get to see all of it. So by all means, if you've got something like that, you've got a question, you've got a comment, reach out to us, Yuba County Public Works. Doesn't matter which one of us you talk to. We're all one big family. We all talk to each other constantly. Give us a shout, let us know.
Wonderful.
Make the project better.
Wonderful. Any other questions before we close? No? Dan, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. As you can tell, we get very excited about our projects.
We do love them.